Welcome back to the channel. My name is Emery. This channel is dedicated to helping you get better at backpacking. I love photography. I think it goes really, really well with backpacking. So today I wanted to compare 3 different cameras that I think personally pair really nicely with backpacking. They're not heavy. They can kind of expand or contract depending on what you want to do, all but one of them. And all around, I think they fit very nicely with backpacking. And those cameras are the following. This is the Fujifilm X100V, the Fujifilm X-Pro3, and finally the Fujifilm X-T4. All right, so this is the Fujifilm X100V. I absolutely love this camera. This is the first Fujifilm camera that I ever used and I ever owned. I don't know what kind of magic they put in this thing, but it is incredible. I got interested in this camera for one main reason. It's very lightweight. It's great for traveling, but this version is actually weather resistant once you put a filter on the front of it. And I can get into that in another video. But to make a long story short, it's a very analog style camera. It has a tilt screen, so you can kind of get lower shots or higher shots. It's a rangefinder style camera, which means the viewfinder's off to the side. But the main feature about this camera is that it's a fixed focal length. So it's an equivalent, it's 23 millimeters in crop sensor, but it is a 35 millimeter full frame equivalent. And what's great about that 35 millimeter focal range, it does a very nice job of documenting the scene around you. So it takes very nice portraits and it does pretty good at landscapes as well. It's not too wide to where you're kind of losing a subject, but it's not too tight to where you don't have a lot of room to work with. So I personally think 35 millimeter is really great. I love this camera. It's very, very beautiful. It takes amazing images, and I'm pretty sure all these cameras have the same sensor in them. So they're very similar, but for some reason, man, this one's really great. Also, it goes down to f2. Does very good at shallow depth of field and does well in the light. The next step up is a camera that I'm playing around with for just a few days. This is the X-Pro3. And the reason why I was interested in the X-Pro3 is because it has an interchangeable lens on it. I can swap this out for a different lens. And what's really great about that is that it offers a lot of flexibility. Whereas with the X100V, you're stuck with one focal length. What's cool about the X-Pro3 is that it is a photography first camera, much like the X100V. Again, it's a rangefinder style, so the viewfinder's off to the side. But what's interesting about this one is that it doesn't have an LCD on the back like what you'd normally expect. It has a flip down one. And the purpose behind that is that kind of forces you to kind of be in the moment, focus more on photography and less on the screen. Now, what I don't like about this camera is that I feel like maybe it needs an update. I would love to see what comes out next, like the X-Pro4. If that thing comes out, that would be amazing, because I think that it needs a bit of an update. It's a little slower. The shutter's really loud, and you can just tell it's just an older camera, but still takes really beautiful images, especially if you have a really nice lens on it. I think it pairs really well for backpackers because it's light, it's compact, and it just feels really good in your hands. This is the X-T4. Now, this is I would say at this current time, this is like their flagship, I would say. It's a hybrid camera. It does photos really well. It does videos really well. Lots of customizable options. It's got a flippy screen so you can kind of see yourself. You can vlog if you want. That's really nice. And you can change out lenses. This camera takes really beautiful images and I really enjoy it. The only thing that I'm not quite sure about for this camera, it's almost got too many options in it. So if I were to compare this to, say, the X100V, the simplicity of the X100V really, really attracts me to it. This one, I find myself just oversaturated with the options on it. And there's just so many buttons, which is great for options, but sometimes options, much like gear, kind of just weigh you down and complicate things. So I have found that the X-T4, while it is a great camera, tends to be just a little too much. The ergonomics of this camera are amazing. For me, I have kind of smaller hands. It fits really, really nicely in my hand and it balances really well with a lot of great lenses. If you want to toss a larger lens on it, like this 50 to 140, it's great. It's a great camera for that. Whereas if you were to toss this on the X-Pro3, it might be a little lens heavy, if you will. That's the main differences between those cameras. Again, search YouTube for in-depth details on each of them, but that's a general rundown of them. So the question is, which camera of all three of these would I choose for a backpacking trip? To quantify this, or to like just set the stage, I'm gonna say I'm going out there to document my backpacking trip or hiking trip or travel. I'm gonna go with the Fujifilm X100V because it is so light and is so easy to use, and it kind of just puts you in the moment and just makes photography really fun. There is nothing wrong with those other two cameras. What I struggle with is options, lens options like this one or like this one. I always find myself going, what do I want to bring with me for this trip? Not only that, but lenses like this are really heavy, whereas this camera is a nice focal length for backpacking and hiking, and it just makes a really great image. It's got a low aperture, so f2, good in low light, nice separation of a background. It's just a camera that I grab all the time. Now, I haven't done a thru hike with this camera, but I would not hesitate to do so. In fact, if I were gonna hike the PCT or any long trail, I would be choosing this camera if I was wanting to go with the type of photography that is just documentary style photography. If I'm wanting to do portraits, I'd probably get an X-T3 or X-T4 and an X-Pro3 and toss like a 35 millimeter portrait lens on there. Or if I want to, bump up and do some more telephoto work, I'd probably get that. If I want more reach, then I'd probably get something that I can swap lenses out with. The problem is that there's a lot of weight that comes with that. And for some reason, look, I own the X-T4 and those lenses. And for some reason, I'm just always grabbing the X100V. So for travel, it's lightweight. Without this little lens hood in there, it literally packs down super small, and it's just a great all-around camera. It's also weather resistant once you put a filter on the top of it right here. That's really nice. Now, it is a photography first camera, so it does have video features, but it's not a video-centric camera, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the X100V, the X-Pro3, and the X-T4. I think in the future, if the X-Pro3 gets upgraded to the X-Pro4, I would very much be interested in that camera just because it's just sexy. And I just love it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful camera, much like the rest of the Fujifilm cameras. If you're new to photography, I highly suggest looking into Fujifilm, especially if you're just out there trying to have fun with photography and learn a lot about it. Those cameras teach you a lot about photography. They're really, really awesome. And they kind of just enhance those fundamentals of how photography works, and they just make it really fun. So I hope this was enjoyable. I hope this was beneficial to you. If you have any questions about photography and whatnot in the backcountry, I'd love to answer them. Put a comment below and we'll go from there. So if you're headed out on an adventure anytime soon, be safe, make great decisions, and we'll see you next time.